To rig or not to rig, that is the question. And that's what today's video is all about. Hi everyone, I'm Dave. Thanks for joining me. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing. My channel is all about filmmaking tips and camera gear and some bad jokes as well. Let's get right into the video. Perhaps you own the Sony a6400 or really any of the Sony 6000 line of cameras. Or maybe you're thinking of picking up this camera. For the price, this is really a great little camera. The features, the photo quality, and the video quality are excellent. In fact, the main reason I bought this camera, I made the jump from Canon over to Sony, I know, right? Was that I was looking for an affordable, lightweight camera that could do the things I wanted. I wanted it to shoot 4K and shoot in 120 frames per second in full HD. So when the Sony a6400 came out, I was pretty excited. It has a flip screen, it has great autofocus, and the ability to shoot in S-Log. Those were all bonuses, and I really liked it. So when I got the camera, I was really surprised at just how small this camera was. At my full-time job as a television producer, we use some great cameras, but much bigger. The Sony FS5 and the Sony FS7s. They're both great cameras, but they're so much bigger. So I had the Sony a6400 with the simple kit lens, which I was pleasantly surprised with. But I had this camera and I wanted to use it for my own personal use, but also for some freelance work. So the camera, it's great and all, but I realized that I would need a bunch of accessories to make this Sony a6400 work for me. So it was time to build my rig with this camera. And of course, the main reason to build a camera rig is so that it looks really cool. Am I right? No, that's not a very good reason to build a camera rig. The main reason is to build a rig that will work for you and for your needs. This kind of does. The first thing I needed was a better lens. Over time, I have picked up a few different lenses. The first one, this one right here, is the Sony 18-200 power zoom lens. Then I picked up the Sigma 16, and the most recent lens was the Sigma 30. These are all great lenses, and I am really happy with them all. So now that I had better lenses, I wanted to pick up a cage for the camera. So I picked up this small rig cage for the Sony a6400. The cage is great. It allows you to add a whole bunch of accessories to the camera. You can just screw them right on there. But also, the cage is very strong. So just in case you're a little bit clumsy and you drop your camera, the cage may save you. Not that it's happened to me. That would never happen. Never. The next thing I needed to add was a microphone or a wireless mic system. Adding a mic system like this one, this is the Sony system, and it works great with this camera. You just simply add it to a cold shoe that you really can place anywhere on this cage. You just plug in the mic and you're good to go. Nice and simple. And audio, simple audio is great. Now, I bought this handle here for the cage. It's also a small rig product. The main reason I wanted a handle was because when I hold the camera, it makes my biceps look real big. No, that doesn't happen. That's never actually happened. But the handle is very handy. I probably could have used a better term for that. Now, the Sony a6400 has a pretty decent flip-out screen, but I wanted something a bit bigger. So I picked up the Small HD Focus 5, a little affordable monitor. It's actually pretty decent and it does a great job. Now, I also have a rail system, as you notice, if you needed it, and maybe a follow focus. I have that, I just don't have the follow focus attached. As you can plainly see, this setup is much bigger than my little simple Sony a6400 mirrorless camera. So with this setup, I can pretty much do any shoot that I want to. I tried to make a rig that I may need in the future, kind of future-proof. The total cost of this rig with the current lens is about 5,000 Canadian or 100 US. Just kidding. Us Canadians, we always make fun of the cost differences between the US and Canadian dollar when it comes to gear. It's kind of sad. We either joke about it or we cry about it, and well, you know what? I'm all cried out. Moving on. So this is not an affordable little camera anymore. I will say that when I started my YouTube channel about 18 months ago, I made a deal with myself and my wife that I would only buy new camera gear when I needed it, and only if I was able to pick up a few freelance jobs to pay for that gear. YouTube isn't my full job, so I didn't want to take away funds away from the family. That just didn't seem right. And man, kids are expensive. Almost as expensive as camera gear. Am I right? Sorry about that. So with this built up rig, I am set for most interviews, sporting events, or any B-roll that I would need to shoot. I have used this setup and it works really, really well. A lot of people have mentioned that having a bigger rig like this can impress a lot of people. Specifically impress clients when you're out on a freelance shoot. Some people say that if you went into a shoot with this smaller setup, the Sony a6400 setup without the accessories, that the client would not be happy or not be impressed with having a small camera and paying all this money. I actually have a funny story, which I will tell a little bit later, which makes that story true and not so true. As I mentioned, this rig has worked really well, but I am not all that happy with this rig, or at least a large rig setup in general. You see, for me, the great thing about the Sony a6400 is that it's a small mirrorless camera. It packs a bunch of great features in this tiny little body. With this rigged out setup, I can do many things. I can easily see everything with the larger monitor. I have better audio with the external microphone, but I'm not getting a better image out of the a6400 because I have all these accessories. The accessories are great. They are a great tool, but for me, my favorite setup for the Sony a6400 is a much more simple setup. Okay, so I've stripped down my larger rig. Don't worry, I was very, very gentle and no one got hurt for the most part. So with the accessories all stripped away, you can see how much smaller this setup is now. Basically, for my everyday YouTube setup, this is how I like to use my Sony a6400. It's very simple, just like me. All I have now is the camera body, the Sigma 16mm lens, and the Rode Video Micro shotgun mic. Now, I do have another accessory, and this is the cold shoe mount. If you have this camera, you already know how frustrating it was when you got this camera and you noticed that Sony had put the hot shoe right in the middle of the camera, which is normally great, but now it is blocking the screen when you flip it up and if you want to look back at it. So if I wanted to put the microphone in the center where the hot shoe is, I can't watch the screen, and that's a little frustrating. We all know why it's there. It's for the flash. If you are taking lots of pictures and you use a flash, great, that's fantastic. But for video, having that there was really, really frustrating. And luckily someone came up with a little attachment that essentially moves the cold shoe over just a couple inches so that you can see the screen and you can also attach your shotgun microphone. So that is it. This is my favorite way to use this camera. So easy. It's light, easy to travel with. You can pop it on a gimbal, super easy to do that, which I use a lot. I slap this on the Ronin SC, a smallish gimbal, I guess, and the setup really, really works well for me. I really like this setup on a gimbal. With this setup, of course, you can't do all the things the bigger rig could do, but that's okay, because with a setup like this, I use this for vlogging or just talking to the camera, simple YouTube work that we do all the time. It's also great for shooting B-roll. It's very light. You pop it on a tripod, you're good to go. There is another option, of course. Actually, there are tons of options. It's your camera. You set it up the way you like it. This is my hybrid setup where I add the cage, as you can see, to the camera. This way I can still add a few accessories to the camera, mainly my monitor, if I wanted to, or a wireless mic or a shotgun mic, something like that. With the cage, of course, you have the options of adding things later if you need them. This setup here works great for on-the-go shooting, which I generally do a lot of. I enjoy that. I could use this on a gimbal if I wanted to. It's still not that heavy, but generally I don't use the cage when I have it on my gimbal. I like the more lighter setup, I guess, and it's a little easier to carry. So earlier I mentioned that a bigger rig may impress your clients or impress other people, but I have to tell you, there have been times where a client actually approached me and was worried that my setup may be too big, and especially in the time of the pandemic here, you don't want to have a really big setup, and they were worried about having a larger setup, which meant more time for me to set up and tear down. Instead, they just wanted something simple. So I went with my hybrid setup. As you can see, another time I was doing a shoot with our city's mayor, and he made a joke just before I went to start shooting about how small my setup was. I just had the camera on a tripod with a wireless mic, and that was it. I also had the Parrot teleprompter attached to it, which made it look a little bit bigger, but it was still pretty simple. He asked me if I could get everything done with this setup, and I told him, yeah, no problem. He actually preferred it because it actually meant it was a much quicker setup for me, and more importantly, a quicker teardown. So I got in there, got out, which was great. So that's it. To rig or not to rig, that is still the question. What about you? Do you like to rig out your camera, or do you prefer a more simple approach? I find it kind of funny that when we buy a more compact camera like the Sony a6400, and then we rig it out right away. And now it is far from compact. Then again, that is the great thing about this camera, if you ask me. It gives us a great image, and you don't have to spend a lot of money to make this camera work like a more expensive camera. For me, I like it either way, although I do lean to a more simple setup. But then again, hey, I'm pretty simple, you know what I mean? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you like the video. If not, that's okay. I'll keep working hard to earn your subscription. Till my next video, see ya.